Hey everyone, we've made some great content on getting started with recipes and Goose. Our previous video taught you why you want to use them, how to create them using the UI, how to add parameters for customizing them, and even how to run them from the command line. These recipes are a powerful way to have Goose do your repetitive work. So if that other video left you hungry for more, then let's get started, because in this video, we're going to upgrade you to Master Chef level with Goose recipes. We're going to show you some advanced use cases, such as control logic, accessing other files from your recipes, and other settings that you can put in a recipe to give it even more functionality. And did you know that you can call recipes from other recipes? We've made section bookmarks for you, so check out the video description for those timestamps, plus links to our documentation. Now let's pull up to this buffet and get started. We know that some AI LLMs are either very generalized, trying to do a little of everything and being pretty average at all of them, or they're set up in a way where one LLM is better at creative tasks like image generation or creative writing, and others are geared more toward engineering like analyzing data patterns and writing software. So if you're writing a recipe to generate images, but my default LLM is set up for software, what kind of results should I expect if I use your recipe? Well, there's a workaround. We can specify which LLM we want our recipe to use. Here's an example of a recipe that'll create an image. We can include a settings section in our recipe to override the default LLM and temperature values that we might have set in our global config file. In this case, I'm going to use OpenAI's GPT-4o model and set a higher temperature value of 0.8 so it'll be even more creative. If I had another recipe where I wanted to write some software to check an API like the weather, I'd want it to be less creative and more direct, so I could use a different provider. I like using Anthropic and Claude Sonnet 4, and I'm going to set a really low temperature so it's less creative when writing code. Now, you will need to be careful with this override. If the person running your recipe doesn't have access to the provider and model that you want them to use, they'll get an error and the recipe won't run at all. If I overwrote these settings with some non-existent provider and some non-existent model name, then if we come over to our terminal and try to run this, we get an error saying unknown provider. All right, how was that starter dish? Are you hungry for more? Goose uses a template language within recipes called Mini Jinja, which is a Rust implementation of the Python Jinja 2 template language. We saw in our previous video how to use parameter names in those curly brackets, or handlebars as some may call them. This template language gives us a lot of really cool logic features as well, but instead of using two curly brackets around our parameters, now we're using a single curly bracket and a % sign to mark our logic. The if-else controls are great if we have optional parameters that may not be defined or present, or if we want to do something based on a value. For our control logic, we have a number of comparators available, including equals, not equals, all the greater thans and less thans. We have some Boolean operators. We also have a number of checks to see whether a parameter is even defined, whether it's empty, or whether the data type is a string, a number, or a Boolean. Depending on the data type of your parameter, we have a number of filters that you can append as well, such as getting the length of an array or the size of your string. We can convert the case of a string from upper, lower, or title case. We can even trim the white space off each end of a string. We can provide a default value for a parameter if there isn't one, and we also have a join operator for list elements. Let's take a look at some examples. Here we're using our join operator so that we can print out a list of all the available tools that we have. Here we're grabbing a length of the number of extensions that we have so we can just give a count. And here we're taking a parameter called feature flag key and we're setting the string all to uppercase. If you're on an operating system that limits the length of a file name, we can combine that length operator plus a comparator to do something useful or maybe warn our user that we can't do something with a file. This template language also gives us access to simple for loops. All right, you ready for the next course? Goose also has a number of built-in values that are reserved keywords for some interesting use cases. Recipe dir is one of my favorites. It allows us to look at files relative to the folder where this recipe itself lives. This is really handy if you don't want to hard-code complex disk paths right into your recipe. You can use this for reading input files or reading output files. And again, everything is relative, so you can do .. Next, I like using current date time for logging. It'll print out the string of the current year, month, day, hour, minute, second in a 24-hour clock. We have a few others that we call context variables, which are read-only. We have a few for working with subagents. We can give you a list of the current instructions for our task. We can let you loop over the extensions to get their name, the resources, and any instructions that they have. We can also loop over the tools and give you the name, description, and parameters and so on. Go check out our documentation on how to use these. Now, all these keywords are super useful, but they are reserved. If you try to set a parameter with the same name, these built-in flags will override whatever you're trying to use, but go experiment with them. Let us know what you find. All right, you ready for the next course? What if something goes wrong with a recipe? Well, you know that old saying, if at first you don't succeed, build an infinite loop and try again, or something like that. Well, in a goose recipe, we can also include some retry logic if our recipe fails for some reason along the way. Let's take a look at how that works. Within our recipe, we can give it a retry instruction. Nested inside of that, we tell it how many retries total we want to attempt. And then we can give it a shell command that we run to see whether our recipe succeeded. We can also give it a command if something fails in case we need to do any kind of cleanup. We can also specify a timeout here, which is really handy if your recipe is trying to access something online and maybe a server is down. Now, if your recipe is really complex and you want to check multiple things, we got you covered there too. You can specify many different shell commands, and Goose will check the exit status of each of these to know whether our recipe succeeded. Let's see how all of this works together. Goose will start by running the recipe instructions, and then it'll check each of these commands to determine whether the recipe worked or not. Let's say this command failed. Goose will check to see if we have any retries left. If so, we run our onFailure command to do some cleanup, and then Goose will reset its conversation state and start all over again. And then Goose will keep working until we run out of retries. Now, as I just showed you, you can specify lots of commands to check whether the recipe succeeded, but we only get one command for the onFailure. So it might be helpful to have a bigger cleanup script if you think you might need to do some kind of complex cleanup or shut down other processes. Okay, I hope you're not full because it's time for dessert. Let's look at subrecipes, which is a really powerful way to break up complex tasks into smaller, more manageable pieces. Think of it like a head chef telling other chefs how to make each of their own dishes so the whole meal comes together perfectly at the same time. By default, any subrecipes that run are done in parallel, so you don't have to wait for each one to finish in turn. I've got an example of a parent recipe here to build us a project and launch 3 subrecipes for generating a README file, logo image creation, and building some basic software. We're going to take in some parameters such as a project name, the programming language to use, and a description of what kind of software we want to build. We can also see here that our programming language is going to be an optional parameter. Next, we can see where each of the subrecipes is defined, and we're using recipe_dir so that we can find our subrecipes relative to where the parent recipe exists. We can pass along values from the parent, which include the parameters that we took in for the project name and description, and you can see here that we're using a filter so that if the user doesn't specify a programming language, we'll set a default to Python. Let's go take a look at each of these subrecipes. For our README file, we're going to use Gemini Flash, and we'll set a medium temperature level. We give it some instructions, we see the parameters that we had passed through to us, and remember that language was set as a default value for us at the parent, so we don't have to do it again here. For our image generator, we're going to use OpenAI's GPT-4o, and we're going to set a pretty high temperature value so it'll be pretty creative when building our logo. And for our software generator recipe, we're going to use Claude from Anthropic and set a really low temperature value so that the AI doesn't get too creative when writing our software. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if we ran this parent recipe, all 3 of these would run in parallel. And when all of these are finished, the parent recipe is done. But what if we need something to happen sequentially instead of in parallel? For example, if I wanted this README file to be built after we had our logo and software so that it could include the logo and maybe instructions on how to run the software, simply putting it at the end won't be enough because it'll still run in parallel. We have an additional instruction that we can set here that's called Sequential when repeated, and we set it to true. This tells Goose that this subrecipe needs to be run in sequence after anything before it is finished running. You can also include this instruction and set it to false when you want things to be parallel, and Goose will determine the parallel or sequential nature based on the order that they're found within the parent recipe. Okay, that was a lot to take in, and I hope your brain feels stuffed and that you're excited and have ideas on how to include all of this in your own recipes. Come join our Discord community, the link is in the video description, and let us know, what do you think of these features, and what are you going to go build with them? And hey, since you're building recipes, we'd love to see them. We made our community cookbook so you can contribute your recipe ideas for anyone else to use. Make a pull request to the Goose repo and share your creations with all of us. See you next time.